What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin, because I do be reading. And let's talk about the 10 books that I read in February. So the first book that I finished in February was a book that I started at the end of January, and that was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I had the e-arc, and I thought, you know, what the heck, let's go ahead and read it. Y'all know I have like mixed feelings on Ali Hazelwood's books. I did a video, which I'll link wherever, where I was giving authors a second chance. And one of those authors was Ali Hazelwood. I left that video feeling a little conflicted. I read Love Theoretically for that video, and I liked it significantly more than The Love Hypothesis, but it was still like a 3.5 star for me. And I don't know, I feel like despite the fact that I still don't like absolutely love her books, she's kind of growing on me as an author. I feel like I can see the growth in her writing as each book comes along. So in any case, I was very excited to see how she would tackle a paranormal romance. I just feel like her writing style and like her fan fiction roots probably really lend well to paranormal romance, and I think that was the case here. I gave Bride 3.75 stars. It's following our main character, Misery. She's a vampire. We're in this world where there are vampires, there are weres, aka werewolves, and there are humans, and they all kind of have this complicated relationship to each other, lots of like political machinations going on, and Misery is being wed to the alpha of the new alpha of the weres for like a political alliance situation, and she's also has her own reasons for doing this. She's trying to search for her best friend who has gone missing. So I think all of this stuff like really worked well. I kind of like that it wasn't, I mean, the romance was central to the book. It's a paranormal romance, but I like that we had kind of like these mystery elements, kind of these other plot points going on in the book. Was the world building great? No. It was not, but I had a good time. I think it was enough for me to enjoy the book for what it was, you know? And I don't know, I guess the romance was good too. I think they had really good, like, there was a lot of good tension in this book. I prefer a dual POV romance, which is something that Ali Hazelwood doesn't do, and that will always be a personal gripe for me, but whatever. It was fine. I had a good time. I gave it 3.75 stars. I read another arc, but the book is out, same with Bride, and I also was sent the physical copy, which is so amazing. It's such a stunning cover. Like, it's so beautiful. This is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I did talk about this book in my Black romance recommendations video, so I'll keep this pretty brief, but this is following our main character, Ricky Wilde. This is multi-POV, but mainly following Ricky, who is the youngest daughter of this very entrepreneurial, rich family in Atlanta. She's kind of seen as a little bit of the black sheep of the family. She's a little bit aimless. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. And ultimately, through various circumstances, she ends up in Harlem, New York, living in this brownstone with this older woman that she came across. And she's opening her own flower shop, and then she's also like getting more in touch with the Harlem Renaissance and learning more about that and kind of incorporating that into her flower shop. And then she also meets a mysterious figure in a community garden, and they have a really interesting relationship. We're also getting some POVs from the Harlem Renaissance. We're getting POVs from some other side characters, and this book is a bit magical, okay? I think I've mentioned this a few times. I don't know why I didn't take the description seriously, but I was really thrown by the kind of magical aspects in this book. But it's a good time, and I felt like this book was very like whimsical and fun, and just kind of, this would be a really good summer book. I didn't like it as much as 7 Days in June, but I did really enjoy this one, and I gave it a 4.25 stars. Then for a video that will be coming out hopefully after this one, so I'll keep this one a little bit brief, but I read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This is my first James Baldwin, and it certainly will not be my last. This is my first 5-star read of the year. This was so good. This is like a collection of 2 essays, and it's just like a lot of musings by James Baldwin during is it the 100th anniversary of emancipation? Yes. And it was just so fascinating, and he's such a good writer. Like, you know, there are just certain people where you pick up their book and you're like, damn, this person was meant to be a writer. Yeah, I know I'm late to the game. I know everyone probably already knew that, but I am also here to say that now. This was so good, and I talked more about this in the video that will be coming up, so be sure to keep an eye out on that. Then for a video that I did, a 24-hour readathon, I read 3 books, so I'll quickly run through that. But the first book that I finished was The Broken Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Inheritance trilogy, and I gave this one 4 stars. I didn't like it as much as The 100,000 Kingdoms, but I still really like this. And as I've said multiple times now in various places, I think N.K. Jemisin would eat if she wrote like a dedicated like romantasy book. This definitely has some kind of romantic aspects, and I think what N.K. Jemisin does so well in her writing is the interpersonal like connections and relationships between people. She's so good at writing various kinds of relationships, and I'm just like so invested. This is taking place 10 years after the events of the 100,000 Kingdoms, and we're following a new protagonist, but we have some similar side characters that we have been introduced to in the first book. And this was just, you know, it was a good time. It felt very different than the first book, which I think I liked. I feel like a lot of times things can feel very samey, and you don't get that from N.K. Jemisin. I feel like every single book that I read from her feels so different than the other, and I like that. I don't really know how to talk about this too much without giving like some spoilers, so in any case, I talked about this more in that 24-hour readathon, so you can check that out as well. But like I said, I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm excited to finally conclude this trilogy. I think I'm going to pick up the final book within the next few months. Then I also read The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest. This is the follow-up to The Neighbor Favor. We are following the sister of one of the main characters in that book. This is following Violet, who is a celebrity stylist. Her career is really taking off. She is all over the place. She's working a little bit too hard. Do you know what I mean? And she ends up going to Vegas, and when she's at Vegas, she runs into her childhood boyfriend, her high school boyfriend, and they were like so in love with each other. They were like, we're gonna get married, and we're both gonna escape this small town that we're from. And like, she wanted to, you know, get into fashion and stuff, and he wanted to become like a big famous basketball player. She did end up leaving. She did end up reaching her career goals, but he had an injury when he was in college that kind of derailed his plans, and now he's just kind of feeling a little bit languishy, but he's trying to get a job as an assistant coach at the college that he went to. And his name is Xavier, I forgot to mention that. So they run into each other in Vegas, they start reminiscing, they get drunk, they do some things, and they wake up and they think that they're married. They didn't actually get married, okay? But they decide, again, through some circumstances that I won't spoil, they decide to pretend to be married for reasons. And so it is both, you know, fake marriage and second chance romance at the same time. And I really enjoyed this one. I think I like this a little bit better than The Neighbor Favor. I really bought into their romance. I think it can be hard with second chance romance. Sometimes I feel like some of those books tend to overly rely on the past relationship and don't show me why they should be together now. And I love second chance romance, but I can admit that it's not always done pretty well. Like 7 Days in June, love. But I read some other ones where I'm just like, I'm not buying into like why they should be together now. And I think this one does a good job of showing how they've changed and how their lives have changed and how they're like fitting into each other's lives now. And I think they had really good chemistry. I just, you know, I really liked this one. It kind of got a little slow in the middle, but it was a good time. And I gave this one a 4.25 stars. And then the final book that I read for that 24-hour readathon was Shadow Shaper by Daniel Jose Older. This is the first in a YA trilogy. This came out around like a decade ago. And it was really interesting because I was reading reviews for this book and everyone just kept mentioning the representation. Both people who liked the book and also people who didn't like the book. They were like, you know, this is so great for representation, but, and I was like, why is everyone talking about the representation? And I realized that this was probably one of like the few like diverse books that were like coming out in YA at the time. So it clearly was like a big deal at the time, but like now, you know, luckily there's so many other great YA books by marginalized people, and there's so much of it now that no one really like is hyper focused on the representation. But I was like, dang, everybody's talking about it. In any case, I didn't like this book. I gave this one a 2 stars. I didn't like the writing style. I thought the world building was underdeveloped. It felt like overly juvenile. I don't know. It almost felt like it could have been a middle grade book in some sense, but then there was also definitely some like words used and like behaviors that obviously signified that these were like teenagers, like older teenagers. So I don't know, it didn't really work well for me. And on top of that, I really didn't like the way that the author wrote our main character. I've had the fortunate experience to have read books that were authored by men with female protagonists that were well written. And I know there's a lot of men who don't write women well in their books. And like I said, I've just been fortunate enough to not have read those books. So this was just a little bit jarring for me. Like, I don't think it was awful, but there were just certain things that he was writing and I'm just like, that's not how that works. And it was just weird. Like, you could just tell like that he didn't have a lot of experience with like teenage girls or like how they think and act, and it was just like really, it was weird. I didn't like it, so I give this one 2 stars. I will not be continuing on with the series. Then I read another Ali Hazelwood book. So I had put Check and Mate on hold on Libby like months ago, and I've just been like doing the like deliver later, and I was gonna do the same thing again because I was like, I don't know if I want to read 2 Ali Hazelwood books in 1 month, but I accidentally hit borrow instead of deliver later, so I was like, whatever. And then I like let it sit for a while, and then I realized that I only had like 2 days left on the ebook, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and read this. And this is her first YA book. I would say it's definitely more upper YA, but like even I would say more new adults. I don't think anything was like extremely inappropriate for younger readers, but it does read older to me, in my opinion. But this is following our main character. What is her name? Mallory. So she has just graduated high school. She has no plans to go to college because she is kind of like the primary breadwinner for her family. Her father is not in the picture, and her mother is very chronically ill, so she's not really able to work all that much. So Mallory has been like holding down the fort. She's working. She's just planning on working to take care of her mother and her 2 younger sisters. And she was also at one point kind of like a chess prodigy. Like, her father was really into it and got her into it, but she stopped for reasons. But then her friend needs her to fill in for like some competition. So she ends up unwittingly playing the like best player in the world and beating him. And it turns into this whole thing. She ends up getting like a scholarship or like a job opportunity to train at this kind of like institution for chess, and she's just like skyrocketing up the ranks, and she's getting back into the chess world, all while like dealing with this guy, the best player in the world. They keep interacting with each other throughout this, and yeah, I I like this one. I think this is probably my favorite Ali Hazelwood that I read. I gave this one 4 stars. I liked it. I was really invested in the chess piece to this. I was like, wow, do I care about chess actually? I learned a lot. It was a good time. Again, I loved the chemistry between her and Noah, I think is what his name was. He was so down bad for her. Oh my gosh. He was like, this is the one, and she will get everything she wants in life. And I was like, I'm here for it, as she deserves. I also liked that Mallory, like, she had like a lot of like internal things going on, and her relationship to her sisters and her mom and just like everyone is very interesting. She's like, there are moments in here where she's like a little bit unlikable, but I like that because, you know, she's like a teenage girl on the cusp of adulthood and she's like dealing with a lot of stuff. So I think Ali Hazelwood did a good job of like showing her dealing with all of these and like learning from it. So yeah, I like this one, 4 stars. And then I finished up the month with 3 volumes of a manga called Yakuza Lover, which is about this college girl who ends up meeting this guy who's like the leader of this Yakuza organization, and they fall in love and she becomes his woman. This series is so silly goofy and also extremely horny. I'm not new to manga, okay? But like I am new to horny manga, okay? I haven't really read more explicit manga before. So I was like, whoa! I mean, I read erotica, so it's like not a big deal. But I was like, wow, these two they're getting it on frequently. It's so silly. It's so silly and deeply unserious, but I will be continuing. It's a good time. I think it doesn't take itself seriously, which is good. So I don't really have much to add. I don't know that I would like rate these, like maybe a 3-star. I don't know. But if you're looking for a silly, goofy time, check it out. So that is everything that I read in February. Let me know what some of your highlights, lowlights were for the month, what you plan on reading for March, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.